I stood in the doorway holding Emily's diagnosis of cancer, her last chance for expensive treatment. My children, Eric and Laura, were sitting at the table, flipping through their phones indifferently. "Help," I pleaded, "it's your mother." Eric snapped, "It's your problem, Dad." Laura nodded without looking up. A month later, Emily passed away. They didn't even come to the funeral. That night I swore that their betrayal would cost them everything. I was not looking for blood, only justice. And I knew how to get it. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. I stood in Eric's doorway, the medical report crumpled in my fist. Emily's diagnosis, cancer, stage 4, burned in my mind. The Chicago skyline glittered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of his pristine living room, all glass and chrome, like a showroom for a life I'd never understand. My son sat sprawled on a leather couch, scrolling his phone. Laura, my daughter, perched beside him, adjusting a gold bracelet that caught the light. I just told them about the treatment, the cost, the slim chance to save their mother. My voice cracked as I begged, "Help us. Please. It's your mother." Eric snorted, not looking up. "Your mess, Dad. Not mine." Laura's eyes flicked to me, then back to her phone. She nodded, a silent agreement. I stepped forward, the paper trembling in my hand. "You're her children. She'd do anything for you." My words felt heavy, useless, like stones sinking in a lake. The room smelled of Laura's floral perfume, sharp and expensive. I dropped the report on the glass table. It landed with a soft thud, a plea in ink and paper. Eric pushed it away with one finger, like it was trash. "You think I'm dipping into my savings for this? Get real." His voice was smooth, practiced, the tone of a man who closed deals and broke promises with the same ease. I turned to Laura, my chest tight. "You haven't said a word. Say something." She stood, gliding to the window, her heels clicking on the hardwood. "We can't afford it, Dad. You know that." Her voice was soft, but it cut deeper than Eric's sneer. She didn't even look at me. I'd paid for their colleges, their cars, their vacations. I'd worked overtime, skipped vacations, built their futures while Emily cheered them on. And now? They sat here, in this sterile palace, acting like we were strangers. My hands shook. "I gave you everything," I said, my voice rising. "And you can't even." "Enough." Eric stood, towering over me, his suit impeccable. "You made your choices. Don't guilt us into fixing them." The words hit like a slap. I wanted to scream, to shake them, to make them see Emily's face when she heard the diagnosis. But their eyes, cold, distant, told me I'd already lost. I grabbed the report, its edges biting into my palm. It was all I had left of her in this moment, this thin sheet of paper that carried her fate. I moved toward the door, my legs heavy. The room felt smaller, the air thicker. I stopped, hand on the knob, and glanced back. Eric was already back on his phone. Laura stared out the window, her reflection sharp against the night. I wanted to say something, anything, to break their indifference. But no words came. The door clicked shut behind me, the sound sharp in the quiet hall. I stood there, alone, the report still in my hand. Their betrayal wasn't just a wound, it was a promise. They'd feel this pain, somehow. I didn't know how yet, but I'd make sure of it. The engine hummed as I sat in my old sedan outside Eric's building. The medical report lay on the passenger seat, its creases catching the streetlight's glow. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles pale. Eric's words echoed, "Your mess, Dad," and Laura's silence stung worse. The Chicago night pressed against the windows, cold and unyielding, like the truth I couldn't escape: my children had abandoned us. Emily was dying, and I was alone in this fight. But I'd fight anyway. I shifted into gear and drove, the city blurring past. The smell of worn leather filled the car, grounding me. Emily was at home, sleeping, unaware of our children's betrayal. I couldn't tell her. Not yet. She deserved hope, even if it was a lie. At our modest house in the suburbs, the porch light flickered. Inside, Emily's quilt draped over the couch, a remnant of her warmth. I crept past her bedroom, her soft breathing a fragile thread in the dark. In the kitchen, I dialed the bank. "I need a loan," I said, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. The clerk's questions droned on: collateral, income, assets. I had little to offer but the car and our savings, scraped together over decades. Next, I called a dealer to sell the sedan. "It's old but reliable," I told him, ignoring the pang of losing the car we'd driven to Laura's graduation. By dawn, I'd arranged to empty our retirement fund. It wasn't enough for the full treatment, but it was a start. My back ached, my eyes burned, but I kept moving. Emily needed me too. In the hospital, the sterile halls smelled of antiseptic. Emily lay in a narrow bed, her face pale but smiling when she saw me. "You look tired, Henry," she said, her voice weak. "I'm fine." I forced a grin, sitting beside her. "We're handling it." Her hand, thin and cool, squeezed mine. The gold of her wedding ring glinted, a reminder of the day I slid it on her finger, promising forever. I wanted to tell her about Eric and Laura, to share the weight, but I couldn't. Instead, I lied. "The kids send their love." She nodded, trusting me. I hated myself for it. The doctor pulled me aside later, his face grim. "A month, maybe 2, he said. The treatment might buy time, but he didn't finish. He didn't need to. I paid what I could, every cent I'd scraped together. Days blurred, bank visits, hospital runs, late-night calls to insurers. Emily grew weaker, her smiles rarer. I held her hand, told her stories of our early years, anything to keep her here. But the cancer didn't care. One night, the monitor's beep slowed. Emily's breathing faltered. I clutched her hand, her ring cold against my skin. "Stay with me," I whispered, but she didn't hear. The room was silent, save for the flatline's drone. She was gone. I didn't cry. Not then. The anger was too sharp, too raw. Eric and Laura hadn't called, hadn't visited. They'd left her to die, left me to carry this alone. I slipped her ring into my pocket, its weight a vow. They'd pay for this, not with blood, but with everything they valued. I walked out of the hospital, the corridor stretching endlessly before me. My steps echoed, steady and sure. In my pocket, the ring pressed against my thigh, a reminder of what I'd lost, and what I'd make them lose. Rain tapped the polished wood of Emily's casket, a single drop sliding down its edge. I stood alone on the muddy grass of the Chicago cemetery, my coat soaked through. The priest's voice droned, words about peace and eternal rest, but I didn't listen. My eyes fixed on the empty chairs lined up under the tent, meant for family. Eric and Laura hadn't come. Not a call, not a text. The gray sky pressed down, heavy as my grief, but sharper still was the anger curling in my gut. They'd abandoned her in life, and now in death. The ceremony ended. The gravedigger's shovel scraped the earth, a rhythmic thud. I turned away, my shoes sinking into the wet ground. The drive home was quiet, the radio off, the world muted. Our house felt hollow without Emily's laugh, her soft humming. In the living room, I sank into the armchair, its fabric worn from years of her sitting there, reading. A photo album lay on the coffee table, its leather cover cracked. I hadn't touched it in years. I opened it, the pages creaking. A picture of Eric, grinning in his first car, a used sedan I'd worked overtime to buy. Another of Laura, radiant at her wedding, the one we'd mortgaged the house to help pay for. Each photo was a memory of sacrifice, of love, of a family I thought we'd built. I'd been proud, then. I'd believed they'd loved us back. My fingers tightened, crumpling the page's edge. How had it come to this? I flipped faster, the images blurring. Eric's graduation. Laura's prom. A Christmas where we all laughed, Emily's arms around them. My chest ached, but not with sadness, with betrayal. They'd taken everything, our money, our time, our trust, and thrown it away when we needed them most. I stopped at a photo of the four of us, smiling at a picnic years ago. My hand froze. Their faces, so young, so happy, mocked me now. The album hit the floor with a thud, pages splaying open. I stood, my breath ragged. Enough, I said aloud, my voice steady in the dark room. They'll pay for this. The words felt right, final. I wasn't the broken man who'd begged them for help. Not anymore. I crossed to the desk, pulling out my phone. Scrolling through contacts, I paused at names I hadn't called in years, old colleagues, favors owed, people who knew things. My thumb hovered over one, Tom Harlan, a lawyer I'd worked with decades ago. He'd know where to start, how to dig into Eric's deals, Laura's debts. I needed information, leverage, a way to hit them where it hurt. The rain tapped the window, its reflection dancing on the glass. I saw my face, lined and tired, but my eyes were sharp. I dialed Tom's number. The line rang once, twice. My heart thudded, not with doubt, but with purpose. I didn't speak when it connected, just listened to the static, the possibility. Whatever came next, I was ready. Rain streaked the cafe window, blurring the Chicago street outside. I sat in a corner booth, a cold coffee untouched, my fingers tapping the edge of a worn notebook. The place hummed, baristas shouting orders, chairs scraping, the air thick with espresso and chatter. I glanced at my watch. Susan, Tom's contact from Eric's firm, was late. My eyes flicked to the door, then back to the notebook, its pages already marked with names, dates, questions. This was my anchor now, my way to pull Eric and Laura down. The door chimed. Susan slipped in, her coat damp, eyes darting. She slid into the booth, clutching her purse. I shouldn't be here, she whispered, barely audible over the noise. You're here now, I said, keeping my voice calm. Tell me about Eric. She hesitated, then leaned in. He's been bragging. Deals that don't add up. Off-the-book stuff. Thinks he's untouchable. I opened the notebook, scribbling. Who knows about this? Only whispers. His boss might suspect. Her fingers twisted a napkin. If it leaks, he's done. I nodded, my pen steady. Reputation was Eric's currency, lose it, and he'd crumble. Anything else? She glanced away. He's been careless. Emails, calls. I've seen some. I pressed her, gentle but firm, until she gave me names, dates, a trail to follow. When she left, hurrying into the rain, I felt a spark. Not joy, but purpose. Next, I drove to Ron's office, a cramped space downtown stacked with files. Ron, my old lawyer friend, leaned back in his chair, tie loose. Eric's in deep, he said, tossing a folder across the desk. Shady investments. If the feds sniff around, he's toast. And Laura? I asked, flipping the notebook open. Ron smirked. 5 credit cards, 2 missed payments. She's living a lie, Instagram parties, designer bags, but she's drowning. I remembered Laura, years back, begging for a loan for some business. I'd given it, no questions. Now, her debts were my leverage. Can we use this? I asked. Ron's eyes narrowed. Depends. What's your play, Henry? I didn't answer. Back home, night cloaked the house, the only light from a flickering bulb. I sat at the kitchen table, the notebook open. My pencil traced lines, Eric reputation. Laura debts. Arrows connected them, a web of their own making. For the first time in months, I smiled. This wasn't just anger, it was control. I closed the notebook, slid it into a drawer, and locked it. The house was silent, but my mind buzzed. I pulled out an old laptop, its keys stiff from disuse, and opened Eric's firm's website. Names, emails, a hierarchy of power. I started typing an anonymous message, fingers steady but heart racing. You should look into Eric Collins. Check his deals. The cursor blinked, waiting. I stopped, the screen's glow harsh on my face. Was this enough? Or just the start? The word stared back, a challenge I wasn't ready to answer. Not yet. The laptop's glow cast shadows across my kitchen, the only light in the house. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, the anonymous email half-written. Eric Collins. Off-book steals. Check the records. The cursor pulsed, a heartbeat in the dark. Emily's ring, tucked in my pocket, pressed against my leg. I saw her face, pale in the hospital, her trust in me unbroken even as our children turned away. Was this too far? Hurting them like they'd hurt her? My hand trembled. No. They deserved this. I hit send. The screen flashed, message gone, no turning back. I leaned back, the chair creaking, and let out a breath. The house was still, the hum of the laptop fading as I shut it down. Sleep didn't come that night, but I didn't need it. I'd taken the first step. Morning broke gray and sharp. I walked to a park near downtown, needing air, noise, anything to drown the questions in my head. The paths bustled, joggers, dogs, kids chasing pigeons. I sat on a bench, the wood damp from last night's rain, and watched the world move. A radio blared from a vendor's cart, catching my ear, financial firm under scrutiny for irregular transactions. My pulse spiked. Eric's firm. It was happening. Across town, in Eric's glass-walled office, he stood rigid, phone pressed to his ear. What do you mean, an audit? He snapped, his voice tight. Who sent that tip? His tie was askew, his confidence fraying. I wasn't there, but I could imagine it, his panic, his world tilting. Good. Back home, I checked the anonymous email account. The message was marked read. A reply sat in the inbox, brief, we're looking into it. My fist clenched, a quiet thrill running through me. I'd done this. Me, the old man they dismissed. I paced the living room, energy I hadn't felt in years coursing through me. But a shadow lingered, fear. What if they traced it back? What if I'd miscalculated? In the park earlier, the radio had kept going, no names released, but sources say key players are nervous. I'd frozen, listening, my hands buried in my pockets. Now, at home, I turned on the news, the anchor's voice filling the room. Eric's firm again, more details, regulators involved, reputations at stake. I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. This was just the start. My phone buzzed. A text from Ron, Eric's freaking out. What did you do? I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering. No reply. Instead, I pulled out the notebook, its pages creased from use. I flipped to Laura's name, drew a new arrow, debts. Exposure. Eric was reeling, but Laura was next. She'd built her life on appearances, time to tear them down. I set the pen down, the notebook's pages rustling as I closed it. The sound lingered, sharp in the quiet, a promise of what was coming. Eric's office was a cage of glass and steel, the Chicago skyline mocking him through the window. His phone vibrated, skittering across the desk, Laura's name flashing. He snatched it, his jaw tight. What now? He snapped, tossing a pen that rolled toward a hairline crack in the glass tabletop. The crack caught the light, a jagged reminder of the audit his boss had just announced, triggered by that anonymous tip. His deals, his reputation, everything was unraveling. "You screwed this up, didn't you?" Laura's voice was shrill through the speaker. "Your shady deals are dragging us both down." "Me?" Eric stood, pacing. "You're the one flashing your debt-ridden life all over the internet. Someone's watching, Laura. Someone knows." I wasn't there, but I knew. From a crowded cafe across town, I sipped bitter coffee, my phone open to Laura's latest Instagram post, a forced smile at some glitzy event. The caption screamed confidence, but I saw the cracks. Ron had called earlier, his voice low. "They're at each other's throats, Henry. Eric's paranoid, Laura's a mess." I jotted in my notebook, "Eric, panic. Laura, facade crumbling." The pen scratched, steadying my pulse. In Laura's apartment, the air was thick with her perfume, but the room was chaos, dresses strewn across the couch, wine glasses unwashed. She slammed the door, checking the locks twice. "If you hadn't been so careless," she hissed at Eric, who'd stormed over, "we wouldn't be in this mess." "Careless?" He tore a page from a notepad, crumpling it. "You're bleeding money, Laura. This is on you." Their voices clashed, a symphony of blame. I didn't need to hear it to know they were fracturing, just as I'd planned. Years ago, they'd fought like this, over toys, attention, and I'd stepped in, soothing, fixing. I'd believed in them. Now, I watched from afar, their betrayal fueling me. Emily's ring pressed against my thigh, a cold weight in my pocket. At the cafe, the clatter of dishes and chatter enveloped me. I scrolled through their profiles, noting Laura's frantic posts, Eric's sudden silence. They suspected a traitor but never me, the old man they dismissed. My coffee grew cold. I dialed Ron. "What's the latest?" I asked, keeping my voice even. "They're imploding," he said, chuckling. "Laura's dodging calls. Eric's yelling at his staff. You got them good." I smiled, but it was sharp, not warm. I remembered their laughter, their small hands in mine. Could I have stopped this back then? No. They'd chosen this path. I wrote another note, "Laura, creditors. Push harder." The cafe's noise faded as I focused, the plan taking shape. Outside, I stepped into the evening air, the city's pulse quickening. A shop window caught my eye, its glass marred by a thin crack, like the one in Eric's office, like the fault lines in their lives. I pulled out my notebook, drew an arrow to Laura's name, and whispered, "Your turn." My steps echoed on the pavement, deliberate, leading me forward. Rain slicked my coat as I pushed through the revolving door of Ron's office, the sound of my steps on the pavement still ringing in my ears. The room smelled of stale cigarettes and coffee, papers stacked haphazardly on the desk. A brass clock ticked on the shelf, its rhythm relentless, counting down the hours my children had left. Ron slid a folder toward me, his tie loose. "Laura's drowning," he said. 3 missed payments, creditors circling. Eric's firm. They're digging deeper. He's one mistake from a free fall." I flipped through the documents, numbers blurring, Laura's debts, a second mortgage, designer purchases she couldn't afford. "Can we use this?" I asked, my pen poised over my notebook. Ron leaned back, smirking. "If you want her humiliated, yeah. Tip off the creditors anonymously. They'll swarm." I nodded, the clocks ticked louder now. Time was slipping, but I held the reins. At the Chicago Public Library, the air was heavy with the scent of old books. I sat at a worn table, surrounded by shelves, searching legal databases for leverage. My fingers flew across the laptop, pulling up articles on debt collection, bankruptcy laws. A librarian passed, her cart squeaking. "Need help?" she asked. "Books on financial disputes," I said, not looking up. She pointed me to a stack, and I dove in, jotting notes, anonymous complaint. Creditor pressure. Public shame. Laura's life was a house of cards, and I'd blow it down. Back home, night cloaked the house, the clock's tick now a faint echo from the living room. Emily's clock, the one she'd wound every Sunday, its hands steady where mine weren't. I sat at the kitchen table, a blank page before me. Could I do this? Turn Laura's world to ash, as she'd done to us? I saw her at 5, paint on her cheeks, giggling as she drew with Emily. My throat tightened. Was this what Emily would want? I shook it off. She'd died alone, ignored by the daughter she'd loved. I wrote the letter to Laura's creditors, detailing her debts, her missed payments, her lies. The pen scratched, each word a brick in the wall I was building. I stopped, the clock's tick filling the silence. Was I a monster? Or a father seeking justice? I didn't know anymore. I sealed the envelope, my hand steady. The house was dark, the air still. I checked the locks, slid the letter into my coat pocket, and stepped outside. The mailbox stood at the corner, its metal glinting under a street lamp. I hesitated, the envelope heavy. Emily's ring pressed against me, urging me on. I dropped the letter in, the slot snapping shut with a hollow thud. It was done. The sound lingered, sharp in the quiet night, a signal of what was coming. Glass crunched under Laura's heel, the shattered mirror reflecting her frantic eyes. Her apartment was a war zone, silk dresses tangled on the floor, a spilled wine glass staining the rug. The creditor's letter trembled in her hand, its demands stark, immediate payment or legal action. Her phone buzzed, a collector's voice cutting through. "We know you're dodging us, Miss Collins." She hurled the phone, her scream swallowed by the chaos. The broken mirror gaped, a jagged wound in her perfect world. Across town, Eric's office was no better. Papers littered his desk, his tie discarded. "You're telling me they pulled the deal?" He barked into the phone, his boss's voice cold on the other end. "Because of the audit? This is sabotage." He slammed his fist down, the crack in his glass desk widening. He didn't know who'd tipped the regulators, but his world was shrinking, his name tarnished. I sat on a park bench, the Chicago evening cool, leaves rustling in the breeze. My phone glowed with news, Collins' financial faces scrutiny, major client withdraws. Ron's text followed, Laura's a wreck. Creditors are hounding her. I leaned back, the wood creaking under me. Their pain was my doing, and it felt right, sharp, clean, like a blade finding its mark. Emily's absence fueled me, her ring a weight in my pocket, a reminder of why I'd started this. I remembered their silence, their ignored calls as Emily faded. They'd left her to die, left me to grieve alone. Now, they'd taste that isolation. In the park, I spotted Laura from a distance, her sunglasses oversized, her steps unsteady. She passed without seeing me, her facade crumbling like the mirror in her apartment. I almost pitied her. Almost. My notebook lay open, its pages marked with their downfall. Eric's lost contract, Laura's public shame, they were bleeding, just as I'd planned. But a shadow lingered. Had I gone too far? The thought gnawed, but I pushed it down. Justice wasn't gentle. I stood, the park's calm at odds with the storm I'd unleashed, and started home. My phone rang as I reached the porch. Eric's name flashed, a jolt through me. "Dad," he said, his voice raw, broken. "We need to talk." I froze, the receiver cold against my ear. He sounded desperate, not defiant. Was this a trick? Or a crack I could exploit? I said nothing, my breath steady. I hung up, the click of the phone sharp in the quiet house. Whatever he wanted, I'd face it on my terms. The phone's click still echoed in my ears, Eric's broken voice cut off mid-plea. I sat in the dim living room, the silence thick, broken only by the faint creak of the house settling. Emily's ring lay on the coffee table, its gold catching the lamplight. I traced its curve, her last words whispering in my mind, "Take care of them, Henry." Had I failed her by destroying them? The thought stung, but their betrayal stung deeper. A sharp knock at the door jolted me upright. I opened it to find Eric and Laura on the porch, shadows under their eyes, their usual polish gone. Eric's suit was wrinkled, Laura's scarf askew, her mascara smudged. "Dad," Eric started, his voice hoarse, "I lost my job. The firm, they fired me." Laura's voice cracked. "They're taking my apartment. The debts. I can't pay." She stepped closer, wringing her hands. "We're sorry, Dad. For everything. For Mom." I stood still, the rings weighed in my memory. Their faces, desperate now, were the same ones that ignored Emily's calls, her funeral. I saw the empty chairs at the cemetery, the rain pooling where they should have stood. "Sorry," I said, my voice low, steady. "You left her to die alone." Eric flinched. "We were wrong, okay? We didn't think. You didn't care." I cut him off, my hand tightening on the doorframe. Laura sobbed, reaching for me, but I stepped back. "You begged for my help once. I gave it. Every time. And when I needed you, you turned away." "Dad, please," Laura whispered, tears streaking her face. "We're family." The word burned. Family. I'd believed in it once. I shut the door, their voices muffled as it clicked. My chest ached, but I didn't waver. They'd feel the pain they dealt, every ounce of it. Later, in a bustling downtown cafe, the clink of cups and hum of voices surrounded me. Ron slid into the booth, a folder in hand. "You've got them on their knees," he said, grinning. "But we can go further. A lawsuit. Demand repayment for everything you spent, college. Cars, Laura's wedding. It's legal, and it'll crush them." I sipped my coffee, the bitterness grounding me. The ring pressed against my thigh, Emily's voice urging me on. "Do it," I said, signing the papers Ron pushed over. "They need to understand." He nodded, gathering the folder. "Court's tomorrow. You ready?" I didn't answer, just tucked the ring deeper into my pocket. Justice was close, but it wasn't sweet, it was heavy, final. Back home, my phone buzzed with Ron's text, "Lawsuit filed. Court tomorrow." I stood at the window, the street dark, a single street lamp flickering. "This is for you, Emily," I whispered, my breath fogging the glass. The light's reflection danced, sharp and unyielding, pulling me toward tomorrow. The street lamp's glow lingered in my mind as I sat in the Chicago courtroom, its wooden benches hard under me. The air smelled of polished oak and tension, the judge's gavel a quiet threat on the desk. Across the aisle, Eric and Laura sat, pale and shrunken, their lawyer whispering frantically. The lawsuit papers, crisp in my hand, detailed every dollar I'd poured into them: college tuition, cars, Laura's lavish wedding. Now, I'd take it back, along with their pride. The judge cleared his throat, reading the claim. "Mr. Collins seeks repayment for financial support provided to his children, Eric and Laura Collins, totaling over $300,000. Murmurs rippled through the room. Laura hid her face, Eric's fists clenched, his knuckles white. Their lawyer stood, arguing they had no means to pay, that it was unfair. But Ron had built an ironclad case: bank statements, receipts, my years of sacrifice laid bare. The judge called me to speak. I rose, the document heavy, my voice steady. "This isn't just about money," I said, eyes locked on my children. "It's about what they threw away. Their mother died alone because they wouldn't help. I gave them everything, and they gave her nothing." The room stilled. I held up the papers. "I made their lives possible. And I made their fall. The tip about Eric's deals. The creditors chasing Laura. That was me." Gasps echoed. Eric lurched forward, shouting, you ruined us." Laura sobbed, her shoulders shaking. The judge banged his gavel, but I didn't flinch. I saw Emily's hand in that hospital bed, her ring cold, her breath gone. "You betrayed her," I said, my voice cutting through their cries. "You betrayed us both. Now you pay." The judge ruled in my favor, ordering repayment with interest. Eric's face crumpled, Laura's hands covered her eyes. I felt no joy, only a grim satisfaction. Justice wasn't warm, it was sharp, final, like the gavel's crack. I walked out, the document folded in my coat, the evening air biting my face. The street was quiet, wind rustling through bare trees. I'd won, but the victory was hollow without her. I stopped at the cemetery's edge, its iron gates looming in the dusk. Emily's grave was there, waiting. I touched the ring in my pocket, its curve familiar, grounding. The gates creaked as I pushed them open, their sound a call to finish what I'd started. The cemetery gates groaned as I stepped through, gravel crunching under my shoes. The evening sky burned pink, casting soft light on Emily's headstone. Her name, etched in smooth granite, felt like a hand reaching out. I knelt, the grass damp, and set her ring on the stone, its gold warm from my pocket. "It's done," I said, my voice low. "They paid for what they did." The silence held me, broken only by a distant bird's call. I told her everything, the lawsuit, their tears, the courtroom's wait. I made them feel it, Emily. The hurt they gave us. My fingers brushed the stone, cool and solid. I'd kept my promise, but the cost lingered, a quiet ache. She'd loved them, even at the end. Would she have wanted this? I stood, the sunset fading, and let the question go. The path here had been long, Eric's sneer, Laura's silence, Emily's last breath. I saw us years ago, walking hand in hand through a park, her laugh bright, her eyes alive. That was the Emily I carried, not the one who'd faded in a hospital bed. I'd fought for her, for us, and it was enough. Back home, the house felt different, still hers, but lighter. I cleared the coffee table, tucking away the photo album, the notebook, the lawsuit papers. Each item was a chapter closed, a weight lifted. The old clock spot was empty, its tick gone, but I didn't need it anymore. Time wasn't my enemy now. I dialed Tom, my voice steady. "Feel like fishing this weekend?" He laughed, surprised. "You serious, Henry? Been years." "Time to start again," I said, meaning it. We set a date, and I hung up, the promise of a new day settling in me. In the living room, I sat with Emily's photo, her smile soft in the lamplight. I'd torn down their world, not for hate, but for love, for her, for the life we'd built. They'd rebuild, or they wouldn't. That wasn't mine to carry. I switched off the lamp, the room sinking into quiet dark. In bed, I held her photo close, my breathing slow. Justice was done, and I was free, not from grief, but from rage. I closed my eyes, her face the last thing I saw, and slept, the lightest I had in years. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.